For many people, Jupiter looks the same way it did the first time they saw it in a textbook. A giant striped planet, a swirling red oval, an eye staring back across the solar system. The Great Red Spot is so familiar that it feels less like weather and more like geography, like a continent, a landmark, something that has always been there. And in a sense, it has. For centuries, astronomers have watched that enormous storm turn within Jupiter's atmosphere. Generation after generation inherited the same image. Jupiter was the giant planet with the giant red storm. The question was never whether it would remain. The question was how something so old could survive at all. Viewed from Earth, the Great Red Spot seemed almost permanent. Long before spacecraft arrived, long before modern telescopes, the storm was already part of Jupiter's identity. Its longevity became part of its legend. A storm that could outlive empires. A storm that could survive longer than entire scientific eras. And because it survived for so long, another assumption quietly formed around it. If it had lasted this long, surely it was stable. Surely it would continue looking the way everyone remembered. Then the comparisons began. Old observations were placed beside newer ones. Historical outlines were drawn around modern images. At first, the difference seemed subtle. The Great Red Spot still existed. It was still red. It was still easy to find against Jupiter's bands. Nothing appeared dramatically wrong. The simplest explanation felt reasonable. Perhaps storms simply expand and contract. Perhaps this was ordinary variation. After all, weather changes. Even very large weather systems change. The ancient storm was still there.
The Great Red Spot.
Maybe it was merely shifting shape. For a while, that explanation seemed sufficient. Then the measurements continued. Decade after decade, the same pattern appeared. The outlines no longer matched. The giant oval, remembered from older images, occupied far more space than the storm visible in newer ones. The reduction was not confined to a single observation. It was not limited to one telescope. The change stretched across generations of measurements. The familiar eye of Jupiter was becoming smaller. Once seen, the transformation became difficult to ignore. Historical images showed a storm broad enough to dominate huge portions of Jupiter's visible face. Modern images showed something noticeably reduced. The difference was not hidden inside charts. It could be seen directly. Like comparing photographs of a famous landmark taken decades apart. The shape remained recognizable. The scale did not. The old mental picture of Jupiter began to fracture. Not because the Great Red Spot had disappeared, because it had changed. And it kept changing. The shrinking outline became a kind of clock. Each new observation updated the story. Each comparison weakened the belief that the storm was fixed. The Great Red Spot was no longer behaving like a permanent mark on a planet. It was behaving like weather. Ancient weather. Extraordinary weather. But weather nonetheless. That realization changed the meaning of every image that followed. Spacecraft passing Jupiter revealed a storm that was not frozen in place. Close-up observations showed subtle distortions. The oval sometimes appeared less regular than expected. Its edges shifted. Its shape fluctuated. Instead of looking like a painted feature on Jupiter's surface, it looked alive. The famous eye was moving, stretching, and responding to forces around it. And that raised a new question. If the storm was shrinking, why had it survived so long in the first place? The answer turned out to be less straightforward than many expected. The Great Red Spot does not exist alone. Around Jupiter, smaller storms form, interact, collide, and dissipate. The giant storm occupies an atmospheric environment filled with motion. Researchers began examining whether those surrounding systems might matter more than previously assumed. Perhaps the Great Red Spot was not simply a self-sustaining giant. Perhaps it depended on relationships with the atmosphere around it. Images revealed smaller storms approaching the massive vortex. Some interactions appeared to feed energy into the larger system. Others altered its structure. The exact mechanisms remain an area of active study, but the broader picture became harder to ignore. The giant storm was part of a network, not an isolated monument. A living system embedded within other living systems. That possibility introduced a new kind of uncertainty. If surrounding atmospheric conditions change, what happens to the storm? If the environment supporting it changes, does the Great Red Spot change as well? The old image of permanence continued to erode. Not because scientists had discovered a single definitive explanation, because reality refused to remain simple. The longer observers watched, the less the storm resembled a timeless landmark, and the more it resembled a process still unfolding. Today, the Great Red Spot remains one of the largest storms in the solar system. It is still unmistakable, still visible, still ancient. Yet those facts no longer carry the same meaning they once did. Survival is not the same thing as stability. Endurance is not permanence. The storm has survived for centuries, while simultaneously transforming before human eyes. That contradiction sits at the heart of the story. The feature most people associate with permanence is revealing the opposite lesson. The universe did not preserve a perfect image for us. It preserved a changing one. Look at a textbook-era outline of the Great Red Spot. Then place a modern image inside it. The older boundary surrounds the newer storm like a ghost. A memory of what once seemed unchanging. The shape remains familiar. The scale does not. And suddenly, the Great Red Spot becomes something different from the icon we inherited. Not a permanent planetary landmark. Not a fixed symbol attached to Jupiter. Just weather. Immense weather. Ancient weather. Weather that has lasted longer than anyone expected. Weather that is still evolving. The story begins with an eye that appeared eternal. It ends with a shrinking storm suspended in Jupiter's atmosphere. The image is still recognizable, but now it carries a different meaning. The Great Red Spot is not proof that some things never change. It is proof that even the most familiar features in the solar system remain unfinished stories.